All right, guys, I am hoping to make this smooth. So I am creating the announcements this week via Screencast-O-Matic. So it's a website where you can make free recordings of what's on your screen. And honestly, we have to do this in one of the classes that I teach, but I personally have never done it, so I'm kind of excited. I heard it's pretty easy. I'm just hoping it's working. So let's take a look at week 5. I wanted to give you as much time as possible to do your presentation, so I didn't want to take up the time going over the week. So hopefully you'll have a chance to listen to this on Monday. First, I wanted to see where you all were with the tutoring project. This is the timeline. Remember, this timeline is found in the tutoring handbook and under the course information tab. But right now we are starting week 5, so you should be in the midst of your tutoring sessions. Remember, your goal is to have about 5 actual tutoring sessions and then 2 additional sessions for pre-assessment and then post-assessment. So you want to have probably a total of 7 sessions. So think about that as time is winding down, and are you getting enough sessions in? So you have about 2 more weeks of actual tutoring, and then during week 7 you want to start thinking about your post-assessments, which we'll talk about at a later date. So that's where you should be with the tutoring timeline. Your assignments this week, we have our journal as per usual. The mentor text is a little bit different this week. Remember, I said in weeks 2, 3, and 4 you're choosing mentor text for reading skills, and now for 5, 6, 7, 8 you're choosing mentor text for writing. So we do a switch this week. So now instead of a reading skill, you're looking for a writing skill, and for week 5 it's descriptive language. So now you're looking through text and finding authors who do a really good job with their descriptive language. I'm thinking, my son loves those Froggy books. Froggy Goes to Camp, Froggy's Halloween, and that author does a really good job with descriptive writing. But now more than ever, it's really important to include actual excerpts from the book into your template that you complete, because the purpose of mentor text is to really pay attention to the language and use the author's words in your lessons, especially when you're showing writing, because this is like models of writing. And I wish I did this as a teacher, because I just sat there and wrote from my own head for my poor 6th graders, and that was probably very limited. So the idea of using mentor text to model writing means, you have infinite amount of possibilities. So this week we're looking for a good model of descriptive language that can be used for K-2 students, okay? So we also have our discussion. We're looking at different reading strategies for comprehension. And then your assignment this week is to write a lesson plan for reading comprehension. This may or may not be something that you use with your 2T. Again, it really depends on if your 2T needs this. I'm guessing many of your students that you're working with are still in the beginning reading and kind of fumbling through all of those skills. So I don't know if they are ready for you to be focusing on comprehension, but regardless, you should still have some practice writing a comprehension lesson. So I just wanted to show you our standards and just kind of briefly look at the comprehension standards. These are the Common Core for English Language Arts. The front looks like this. So these are the California ones. Now our comprehension standards, my gosh, there's a lot of stuff in the beginning here. They're broken down into 2 sections. We have the reading standards for literature, K5, which is basically fiction, poetry, all of that. And then we have informational text. Okay, so The standards are broken down into either one of those. You can choose either one for your lesson. So just take a look at some of the things here that are expected of kindergarten first graders and second graders. So here's about asking and answering questions about details in a text, retelling stories, describing characters, and you can see how the standard evolves from kindergarten up to grade 2 and even grade 3 if you're doing that. Talks about relationships between the story and the illustrations, points of view, and then if you kind of scroll down, look at informational text. Similar, but different, I guess. Ask and answer questions about a text, identify the main topic, connection between two individuals or events. So slightly different, which makes sense. So look at the standards and decide what you want to write your lesson on. You can use a piece of literature to help you. It could be, it could be anything. It could be a big book. It could be a regular book. Another book that I've been reading every night is Corduroy. And Corduroy is just a very simple text, and I just feel like it's a great book to teach like beginning, middle, and end. It'd be good to teach theme too, but that's 4th grade, huh? All right, so take a look, see what you want to do, and then you're given a template to use. Now, I've got to tell you, it says here that this template is an adaptation of one designed by UCSB, and it also includes the things necessary for your TPAs. And that's this one up here. I didn't love it. I'm just saying that. I didn't love it. And maybe it's helpful for you as you go through your TPAs, but if you want to use that template, by all means, I'm sure it's very beneficial. I also included my own template. This is one that I created. So I'm just going to show you the difference between the two, and you can decide, and you can use whichever one you want. And I won't be hurt if you don't use mine. But the beginning of this one had a lot of questions. Now I'm wondering, are those subjective questions, like things just to think about, or are we expected to answer these? When I taught this last, everybody answered these as well. And I thought it was a little bit of overkill. Because then you have your lesson plan, you have your materials, and then on the right is purpose. Now, I'm all for purpose. I mean, you need to have a purpose for what you're doing. But for every step, I don't know. It would drive me crazy to write a lesson plan like this. But for some of you, maybe it's helpful. Engagement, motivation, exploration, guided practice, and learning activities. So that's your I do, we do, you do flow. And then the application, I guess that would be the you do. Closure. I'm trying to think if that would be the assessment. I don't see assessment. Closure must be assessment. Anyway, let me show you mine. This is very simple, very straightforward. It's kind of the way I am. I'm very much a minimalist. I kind of just get to the point. So this is a lesson plan you can also choose to use. Standards, objectives. Now the red part is just information for you. It's notes on how to complete each section. So just delete that as you write your lesson plan. Your anticipatory set, it's how you're going to connect to prior knowledge. I know I had some of you in 512, and we had to write a lesson plan in 512 that was similar to this. So I'm guessing the majority of you have some practice writing lesson plans. Some of you that are interns, I'm sure, are writing lesson plans more frequently, but it is an important skill. It is important to think through a lesson and really understand the flow and the purpose of your lesson. And the flow should always have some sort of connection. How are you going to hook your students? How are you going to connect it to prior knowledge? And then the flow should be I do. You should model it. In other words, there should be some kind of teaching going on. You shouldn't just have students go do something. And then there's a we do. There's kind of now you're asking for student participation. You're having them work in groups as you help them. In other words, there should be some support. And then finally, there's the you do, where now they practice that skill on their own. They apply it in some way, shape, or form. All right, closure is usually just something very simple, like you call a few students to share their responses. You review the vocabulary, whatever it was that makes sense for the lesson. There should be some kind of assessment. And then differentiation. I put these three down: struggling reader, English learner, and gifted student, just because I find that those are the three most common that you will come across in a classroom. I think now we could probably throw in ADHD in there, right? Probably just as common as all the others. And then there's a section for your materials. So anyway, I find this to be very helpful. This is how I teach. I have my plan, I have my hook, I have the flow, there's closure, there's an assessment, and I think about adaptations. So you are more than welcome to use this template instead of the other one. And it should be, again, on something related to reading comprehension. All right, so that is week 5 in a nutshell. Just keep an eye on your tutoring and make sure you're not falling behind on that. And then let me know if you have any questions. There's that tutoring journal button. Oh gosh, I'm running out of battery. There's that tutoring journal button on the left there. That's where you'll click and write your brief reflection after each meeting with your tutee. And I believe that's it. So hopefully this all worked, and I will send it off to you, and then we will have our presentations on Monday night.